Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dhanush channel. Today we are continuing the discussion that we had in Economic Survey the other day. This is class number 4 of Economic Survey 2025. So in this, we are going to discuss about the second chapter in the survey where the discussion is about the monetary policy developments and the fiscal sector developments in the country, that is financial sector developments. Along with this, we'll also shed some light into insurance and pensions. So this chapter in totality will discuss five things. Particularly this chapter is about the monetary developments in the country, money supply, banks and the market segment in the country. So we all know what we have to study in the money segment. Money segment we have to study what was the money multiplier effect in the country, what was the policy rates of the RBI through which money multiplier effect is going to depend on. Subsequently, we have to discuss on the financial sector developments about the banking sector in the country. This year, the budget economic survey has given a detailed analysis of insolvency and bankruptcy code. So that is one thing that is highlight of this budget. And two more developments have been observed in this economic survey, which was not there in the previous years. Particularly, this is regarding to the so-called the rural financial institutions such as RRBs. Subsequently, they have given about developmental financial institutions in the country. We all know that developmental financial institution is one concept of the banks which was developed prior to 1993 or prior to our LPG reforms. Based on M. Narasimham Committee 1 recommendations of 1991, these developmental financial institutions, which were earlier four, were brought under the so-called either the banking sector or non-banking sector. In the year 2021, Government of India has come out with another developmental financial institution known as National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development. In that context, this year economic survey has shed some light into that financial institutions. So we will start with money multiplier or the so-called monetary policy. Then we have given some light into the financial segment, particularly the banks in the country. After the banks, they will discuss about how stock markets are operating in the country, that is capital markets. So we know that markets are of two types, money markets and capital markets. Capital markets where money can be mobilized for more than 1 year. Particularly here, stock markets are important. In this year, economic survey has focused something on the stock markets, particularly the primary market and the so-called secondary market. Coming to the so-called debt market also, they have given some substantial analysis. This is about stocks that they have discussed. The third thing that they discussed is on the so-called pensions in the country, how the pension enrollment in the country has improved in the last few years, particularly after this government has taken care of the downtrodden sections of the community. That is one area where we have to focus on. And speaking about the insurance sector, they have shared 2 or 3 paragraphs on this insurance sector about how insurance penetration was there in the country and how insurance density was there in the country. After discussing these 5 segments, then they have spoken about the regulators. Any institution should have regulators. Now, as I said, this economic survey is focusing on one of the most important themes, that is called deregulating the sectors. Now, where we have to deregulate, whether giving a free hand to the private sectors in the financial sector operation is going to be a positive thing for the country or whether it is going to be a negative thing for the country. This they have compared by taking 2 countries in line. One thing is before global financial crisis, they have taken some countries like Ireland and they have compared, and after global financial crisis, how the position was there. They also compared with the so-called Asian financial crisis that was seen in the years of 1997 or much before, where a country like Thailand, how it has been impacted because of this. So there was some analysis on this. So they spoke about financial sector regulations and financial sector regulations in this country. Subsequently, what they have come out, one of the most emerging problems is digitalization. That is an opportunity, by the way. With that opportunity, we see emerging cyber frauds in the country. So the survey has exclusively focused 3 or 4 paragraphs in this second chapter altogether on this cyber frauds, by the way, which is very important for our internal security GS paper 3. If you look at the questions that they have been asking, particularly they will be focusing on the so-called financial sector regulations in the country. So this is the 5 or 6 topics that was covered in the second chapter, starting with the so-called monetary policy, then financial sector developments. In this they have given about banks, stock markets, insurance, pensions, financial regulators, and subsequently the emerging threats in the financial market, that is the so-called bond market or the stock market. That is what they have covered in this. So we'll be starting at that position and subsequently we will be making through it. So to give you a quick recap about what is there here, we have to understand that financial stock markets. Let's start with the so-called monetary developments in the country. If you observe the monetary developments in the country, thanks to the so-called controlled inflation, RBI has maintained more or less the same amount of monetary policy since March 2023. They have changed their stance only in February 2024 to February 2025, which means for almost 18 months the monetary policy has not changed the so-called repo rates. So as a result, the repo rate was fixed very high in the country. And due to this fixed repo rate or increased repo rate, the monetary policy circulation in the country has come down. This is one thing that we have to observe. So obviously, why any bank, be it a central bank of India or the central bank of any government, why they do fix the so-called monetary policy at a very low level, or monetary policy will be fixed at a high level depending upon the inflationary situations or deflationary situations in the economy. As India was reeling under high consumer food price inflation, Government of India has went ahead with it. That was one observation that money multiplier effect has seen in the country in the last few days. After that, when it comes to the so-called how money is getting multiplied, the money is also getting multiplied based on other parameters such as reserve ratios. There has been a decrease in the reserve ratios of RBI this year. As a result, a quantum of money supply has increased. So as far as reserve ratios are considered, there has been some increase in the money multiplier effect, but when it comes to the so-called repo rates, the repo rates has been maintained constant, or the policy rates has been constant, and that is the reason why money multiplier effect has been not moderated. So whatever the positives that we see here, that was getting moderated due to this concept. That is first observation as far as monetary policy developments are considered. Coming to the so-called financial sector developments about the banks in the country, there has been substantial focus on the banking sector in India. And this survey has have given a very optimistic vision of the banking sector in the country. So what they are speaking. The economic survey says, the banks in India has operated successfully or decently well in the last few years. Due to this, the gross NPAs in the banks has come to 12-year low. Subsequently, the net NPAs have been 12-year low at 0.6% of the total loans that they have given. The capital to risk-weighted assets ratio in the banks have increased. Almost all the banks in the country has reached the so-called common equity tier 1 capital of 8%, which was set by RBI according to the Basel banking norms. Subsequently, the profitability of the banks have increased because the return on equity, return on investments have been positive for the bank in the last few years. As a result, almost all the banks have shown a substantial increase in this positive productivity. These are the monetary developments in the banking sector, and the credit that the banks have been increasing, have been giving to various sectors, be it agricultural sector, be it industrial sector. To the agricultural sector, the credit has reached to the maximum, or they have given the maximum thanks to the so-called priority sector lending and various institutional mechanisms that RBI has taken up. So this is one thing that we observe as far as credit to the banks are considered. Now when it comes to the so-called credit to industrialists or industrial sector, the major portion of credit in the industrial sector has been called by micro, small, medium enterprises. So MSMEs is the one which has got immense amount of benefit from this year credit cycle that the RBI has given. So in that context, survey has also mentioned what is the total credit of Indian banks compared to the GDP size. So the country of our country is situated in a well-to-do position of the total credits that it has given in terms of its GDP. It was dominated by China anyhow. So that is another analysis that they have given. Coming to the so-called rural financial institutions, this year economic survey has given in detail analysis of how regional rural banks in the country has operated. What was the evolutionary story of these RRBs? How they have been consolidated year on year by the year 2006, and from 2006 how the banks started operating decently well again. And then thanks to this rural financial institutions, the rural credit has increased, and majority of the rural communities has come out of the so-called informal lending, and today thanks to this rural credit, what we see is a majority portion of rural credit has been given by the banks. So almost 74% of India has come out of the clutches of money lenders thanks to this initiatives that the Government of India has taken up, particularly in the form of developmental financial institutions, particularly in the form of differential banks, that is called regional rural banks. Speaking about the developmental financial institutions, economic survey has clearly focused on The so-called earlier there were some developmental financial institutions, but in the year 2021 and 2022, Government of India thought to come out with the National Bank for financing infrastructure development, and in the year 2023 it has been concretized. It has taken an institutional form. A National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development is the next developmental financial institution, which was 100% owned by Government of India and which was established in this economic which was established in India in 2023, and that got some clear highlights. Next, speaking about the efficiency of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code that was introduced in the year 2016, the Economic Survey has given due credit for the achievements that IBC Code has done. So the survey goes on quoting that almost 3.4 lakh crores of bad loans have been recovered by Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and the code has been quite effective compared to the earlier debt recovery tribunals, which were having some problems of understaffing as well as the overpending of cases. That is about Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and that is how the banking sector in India started coming out of the clutches of NPA. And today, the banks in India are operating at a healthy rate of 12% or 12-year low of gross NPAs. So that is one substantial achievement. Coming to the capital market segment, whenever we discuss about capital market, we have to speak about the stock markets. So there was some clear analysis in the stock market that the total number of investors in stock markets have been increasing. The average age of Indians who are entering into the stock market earlier, which was confined to the senior citizens, today it is a youth who is propelling their money into the stock market segment. As a result, the stock markets have seen a rise in the capital assets. Speaking about the primary markets are those markets where IPOs will be issued. Government of India has seen a major achievement in the IPO segment in the country. Thanks to the so-called rising investors' participation, or middle class started entering into the stock markets. That is one thing that this economic survey has given. Speaking about the risks that is associated with it, the survey speaks about a fine balance between financialization of the sector and converting that financial assets into real sector output. That is one thing that we have to focus on. That is what they have given. Coming to the so-called corporate debt market, the corporate debt market is very good, and corporates are getting good amount of finances from the banks or from the so-called government today, and that is what they are focusing on as far as corporate debt structuring is considered. Next one is insurance sector. Due to the governments of India's initiations such as Insurance for All by 2047, the insurance penetration and the insurance bed density in the country have substantially increased. So today there has been new products across the range of insurance sectors, and as a result the insurance sector has been mobilized and it has been growing at a good growth rate in the country. Coming to the pension segment, majority of the new pensioners have been entering into the segment due to the so-called the informal pension schemes that the Government of India has launched in the form of the so-called Shram Yogi Mandhans. And as far as EPFO is considered, EPFO is registering new pensioners. That indicates that there has been increase in the formal employment according to this data. Coming to the financial sector regulators, so far you have many regulators in the country as far as financial segment is considered, but what RBI says, what the services is, the financial regulators has to be maintaining a fine balance between ensuring that the protection of the investors is being ensured. Along with this, they have to also ensure that these regulations are not blocking the growth of the financial sector. There has to be a thin line, and that is what the challenge for the financial sectors is. If you are excessively regulating the financial institutions, definitely the credit will not be there. For that, they have given an example. Consider this: if the reserve ratios of the banks are increased to protect the investors' money or to protect the depositors' money, if you are increasing the reserve ratios, the amount of money left with the banks to give to the so-called lenders is going to decrease. This subsequently hits the credit growth in the country, and the banks will be operating under pressure. So this was a problem that it is going to create. In order to overcome this problem, financial regulators should have a fine balance about how we have to regulate the both institutions. On one side you have to regulate this, on the other side you have to regulate a good growth. So that is what this monetary management is challenging now. The last challenge, or the emerging challenge that the economic survey points out as far as this financial sector developments in the country, is the cyber frauds. So Government of India has taken some initiatives, but there has been increasing cases of cyber frauds that we see in the country, particularly in the segment of something like digital financial transactions. If you see that, then there is some substantial challenge to the economy, and that has to be met by this regulators to regulate the system in such a way that almost all the schemes will be developed in a good position or in a substantial position. So cyber frauds is emerging threat that we have to control. Financialization balancing is important. Regulators balancing is important. That is what the economic survey has spoke about regulators and cyber frauds. So this is a brief description about what was there in this economic survey as far as second chapter is considered. Anyhow, this is a brief introduction. I'll go through the chapter in detail to give you an analysis about how the financial sector is emerging in the country and how that is creating some challenges to the economy altogether. So please allow me to share the screen, and that will give you some insights into what we have been discussing into this chapter. So this is the second chapter, ladies and gentlemen, that we are discussing on financial segment. So the second chapter is on the so-called pensions, economic survey second chapter, which speaks about pensions, insurance, monetary and financial developments. This is the theme of second chapter. So what are the factors that we'll be discussing here? Monetary developments, financial intermediation about banking sector, how it was present. Subsequently, we'll be focusing on developments in the capital market, primary market, corporate debt market, secondary market, rise in investors' participation, followed by the so-called insurance sector, pension sectors, financial sector, regulators and cyber frauds. These are the things that was there in this thing. So to go for a quick recap of this chapter, monetary and financial sector development, the card and the horse. So what they said, the bank credit has grown steadily in the country. The profitability of scheduled commercial banks has increased, resulting in the reduction of gross NPAs and net NPAs and increase in CRAR. The credit to nominal GDP in the country has been growing in the country. As a result, this is some major achievement. The banking sector exhibited improvements in asset quality. So even in asset quality, the banking sector is showing some good improvement. And then the gross NPAs of the scheduled commercial banks has been 2.6% of the total loans. The insolvency and bankruptcy code has recovered almost 3.6 lakh crore in resolution of 1068 plans. And then if you look at the Indian stock markets is performing decently well amidst the so-called global economic uncertainties. And then come to the so-called primary markets. The total primary market resource mobilization is around 11.1 lakh crore in the country. And the Bombay Stock Exchange capitalization has increased, as well as National Stock Exchange capitalization has increased. The insurance market is continued to grow in its path of growth. The total insurance premiums is 7.7% in financial 2024, reaching to 1.21 lakh crores. Pension schemes, there has been growing number of pension subscribers to 16% year on year. That was a quick summary of this. So this is the chapter in detail. So sectoral developments, the cart and the horse. So what is the cart? They are speaking about the cart and the horse. The cart is our economy, the horse is our financial sector and monetary policy sector. So in detail, they have given about each and every segment. Let me go through the so-called the graphs, then you will understand what we are speaking. This is the first one, higher money multiplier effect as of December 2024. Right, money multiplier has been increasing. So this is an indication when money multiplier effect is increasing. What is money multiplier, guys? The total quantum of economic activity that is generated by our M0 money is called money multiplier effect. Money multiplier effect increasing means the economic activity in the country is increasing. That shows that the economy is in the good growth cycle. So this is one indication that money multiplier is showing. Hence money multiplier increasing means the economy should be growing in the good phase. So if you look at the economic cycle of the country should be in the growth phase, and that is what money multiplier effect is indicating. Subsequently, if you go to the next graph, increase in money multiplier is seen over the years. So money multiplier has been a bit high. However, compared to the pre-COVID levels, we have not yet reached to the pre-COVID levels as far as money multiplier effect is considered. That is the only concern here. Coming to the so-called banking sector, whatever we discussed, they have given it again here. We can visualize that in the graphs. A declining gross NPS of the banks to 2.6% of total loans, and net NPS is 0.6. The CRAR is well above the required norms, that is 16.7% as of September 2024 for all the banks. And all the banks have achieved capital common equity tier 1 capital. Next one is looking at the return on assets of scheduled commercial banks. The return on assets are the loans that banks have given, and return on equities have been substantially good. Trends in bank credit. So if you look at the bank credit, year on year the bank credit has been increasing in absolute numbers. There has been a substantial increase in the total amount of credit that the banks have been given. So to somewhere around 160 to 170 lakh crores in the country. However, in terms of the so-called year on year growth, there was a decline, but the total amount that has been given to the various sectors by the banks have increased. Next, Indian economy is witnessing a new credit upcycle. So the credit upcycle means again the bank's credit is going up, and this is a new cycle that we are seeing. So that is one positive thing for the economy. As far as credit to GDP is considered, India is positioned at 8th place in the world as far as the banks are giving the money. So China is the top country which is giving maximum amount of credit to the private sectors, followed by Malaysia, Japan. China, Malaysia, Japan are the three. India is the next country. India is the 8th country here. Then they spoke about rural financial institutions. Then they spoke about developmental financial institutions, and then they spoke about efficiency of insolvency and bankruptcy code, which they have given exclusively about this insolvency and bankruptcy and companies law. So this we will discuss in detail in my next class. So where I will be going about each and everything here. Developments in the capital market segment. So look at the graph again. So the graphs or the table is showing that substantial increase in the market capitalization as a part of nominal GDP is seen. In countries like India, there has been substantial growth in this segment. That is what the observation that we find as far as this is considered. Right. So going further, so look at trends in systematic investment plans. Systematic investment plans have been increasing in the country. This shows that there is an increased participation of new investors into the stock market. That is one observation that we can find as far as SIPC is considered. Right. The next thing that we see is the corporate sector is making good profits in India. Right. Who have invested and who has taken their money from India. That is very, very good. So this is about stock market segment. And when it comes to the so-called how the countries are seeing a bell-shaped growth, a relationship between financial development and growth. As you know, what happens if the financial development is going up over a period of time, there will be increased effect on the growth. Once it reaches the saturation, then if you start going beyond a particular point, it is going to decrease. There will be free hand to the private sector financial regulations. As a result, the regulations will be lax. That creates a challenge. This is what they are speaking about as far as this point is considered. Right. So don't worry, this I'll make to discuss when I come in detail about this topic. So this is about the financial segment, and this is about the things that we have in the country as far as this point is considered. Right. So this is a quick summary of second chapter of economic survey. In my next class, I will look at what are the major achievements of insolvency bankruptcy code, and what are the things that there are 90 paragraphs in total. I will look at some paragraphs by taking second chapter, and then we will discuss that. Thanks for joining, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day. Wish you all the very best.